The first Wednesday.
Call to order.
Call to order.
Mayor Taylor.
Here.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember Briggs.
Here.
Councilmember Watson, absent. Councilmember Iyer, absent. We have a forum.
Now, motion please to move the agenda, moved by Medina Briggs. Discussion? In favor? Opposed? The agenda is approved. Now, motion please to approve the minutes. Moved by Briggs. Medina. Discussion? In favor? Opposed? Minutes are approved. Unfinished business.
Yeah.
New business. Mr. Don.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a handful of items to update. We put the notice out today about the communications director. He'll roughly be starting in a month. In the meantime, Joanna is our interim, so anything communication related needs to go to her. And this will be of particular interest to Councilmember Briggs. You'll remember the discussions we've had about the data project. So on Thursday, we will be going public to announce that we're ready. And on Monday's council meeting agenda, Josh and a couple of his teammates will be there to do a demonstration in front of council meeting. Because for something like this, you really can't scrap it on paper. You have to see, here's what it was and here's what it is. So we'll do a demo in the front of council next week for the public. Also, please note on your calendars that our annual planning session with you is December the 8th at 4 o'clock. And I can affirm you're going to be there a while. This one will last probably 4+ hours. We always try to do a strong closeout for the calendar year because people live their lives in calendar years, not fiscal years. Here is part of the lineup that we'll have for that night. That representatives from the Community Foundation will be there to talk about the housing plan, which was requested by Councilmember Iyer made last time. We'll give you an SCU update. We hope to be able to actually do a demo of the RMS system that we would have selected. Now, you asked me today which one that is. I couldn't tell you because we haven't selected it, but by December 8th, we will have narrowed it down. There'll be a presentation about building and rental services. So this is frequently an area of conversation around the community and in City Hall. Marty will give a budget update and talk about the upcoming process. We will do a winter reminder for folks, so on how to get ready for the winter and what is expected if we have inclement snow incidents. There will be a presentation about the 4th Avenue Street and Transit Project that will be performed by the DDA. Something that's coming. And we will be unveiling what we think is the appropriate model for the unarmed response that night. And talk about potential pilot for it. And then there is a new segment that we're working on. I won't itemize it out here, but it's something I've challenged staff about. So there'll be one other thing. So we'll go, a couple hours, do a dinner break, and then we'll come back for 2.5 more hours and finish it up. That is the only work session we have scheduled for this calendar year. We're going to have to come right back and probably the latter part of January do the first work session for 2026. And we've got one item already kind of in queue. We can't add it to this lineup because it's going to take a while to do all of this, but that's kind of where things stand at the moment, and that's just my update.
A question about the, unveiling the unarmed response model, which is, exciting. Is that the first time that, sort of, that's the first time we'll probably hear about it? Or is there going to be sort of any interaction with other community organizations in advance of this, or will this become the first time that they?
No, we believe it's appropriate that council needs to hear first where we're at. I can share with you, we've been on the ground in probably 4 or 5 cities, riding with people that already do it. We just did a conference call last week with a professor from Wayne State University who's an expert in studying them. So our model is derived from real research and really talking to cities about what worked and what didn't. You will remember that when we started this, we initially started with a theory that this should be 100% walled off or separated from police, where they had no interaction at all with it. Everybody we talked to told us that was crazy. So we're not coming with that. But it should be interesting, and we're solid on the model that we present to. Now, the difference between model and implementing it, we got to start with, are you okay with the model? And then we can move on from there.
The staff has a cadence of that deliberation, the contemplated cadence of that deliberation, and then if yes, when would an RFP be constructed? When that RFP be reviewed and ultimately accepted? Is this what is the runway before, people can start calling if things were to go on a relatively strict schedule?
Mayor, that's hard to say. Marty has to sign off that we can financially do the pilot because we figured out what the price tag is. And there's really not an RFP involved. It is the acquisition of certain things that you got to have and the hiring of people who would actually be doing it. So I can't give you when we would be able to start a pilot, but I can tell you that once the pilot starts, based on the feedback we've gotten from everybody else, you at least want to run your pilot for a year and a half to test and make sure you've identified all the issues. Because everyone has told us no matter how great your model is, no matter how organized you feel like you are, you're going to have issues when you actually start implementing it. And part of fixing or addressing our issue, which is part of the sort of totality of it, we have to be comfortable with how it's dispatched. And we don't control that. So.
Go, no go within 6 months,
Yeah.
and then thereafter 6 to 12 before people can start calling?
I can't answer that.
Sure. I'm grateful for that response. Any other questions on Administrator update? Each one?
I'll start with 2 pieces of good news. I only have good news today.
As I said,
You always have good news. I'm so excited about that. So if you remember, we had brought some resolutions to council to participate in PFAS class action litigation. The funds from that settlement should be coming soon. As soon as I have date and amount certain, I will update all council. But they will not be insignificant, so that should help our water team do further bookings with Arbor water, but that's some good news. I think in the next month or so, like that's soon. The plat litigation, I updated council, the Supreme Court had upheld the Court of Appeals where we won, but plaintiff had some time to file a motion for reconsideration. That deadline passed on October 9th, and they did not. So that is squarely behind us. And my third thing, when I first started, I requested an increase in the city attorney's budget for a new document management system. It's been 2.5 years, so we're there. We have implemented a new system, and it is definitely much better than what we had. Well, the vendor had stopped supporting the old system, but so we needed something new, and it's a lot better. It allows us to link documents, so now that if we're looking for a contract, we can find the one from 10 years ago, which we couldn't earlier. We can link litigation matters. It's going to be a lot more efficient, and it will allow me to generate some reports for you on general types of matters. I think I should be able to do that in January, but of course, the January of 2027 will be more robust because there'll be more data in there. But I will at least try to do some reports in January 26, so you can see what types of reports it can generate. But it's called Net Documents and Action Step, which is a matter management. It will allow us to keep track of time as well, so I'm pretty excited about it. But those are my 3 updates.
Any questions on that? Thank you. Is there any information or upcoming business?
Just a reminder, we don't meet in November due to Veterans Day. So our next committee meeting would be December 10th.
There's a question there. December 9th is the day after you would have been with us for 5 hours. So we just checking. Do you still want to have a meeting that day? You don't have to answer right now, but
Sounds like an opportunity to have 2 good days other than just one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Good.
I know that I just asked you this right before the meeting, but we talked at the last meeting about potentially having, the chief coming in an update on beats and things like that. Is that something that's maybe happening in a different venue or something that you still look forward to at a future meeting?
I mean, it's happening in multiple venues because he's out. But if you wanted to come here, he can. We can arrange one to come here.
Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah, particularly with downtown strategy.
Okay.
That's right. Did you hear? Oh, great.
Okay, I do have just, if we're gonna bring in the police, there might be a desire, in addition to the conversation we had last time, to also talk about track safety a little bit. We had an update on that, because that's been.
From him?
Because we've been having that, repeated conversation that, certainly at council and further conversation potential. Targeted enforcement efforts.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anything else? All right, we now come to public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for members of the public to speak to council and the committee on matters of municipal interest to speak at any time. When need not assigned a consent in this context, speakers have 3 minutes in which to speak, both here and online, so please stay close. Well, there's no time clock. I'll be keeping time and I'll just raise my hand at 30 seconds at 3 minutes if it comes to it. So first public comment.
Hey, can I sit here?
Yeah.
I'm coming here after communicating with Councilman Dish about a subject that I'm really concerned about. And that's the presence of food at city council and planning commission meetings. And I was concerned, first of all, the optics just don't seem right because when I've been there, it's been one political group, Neighbors for More Neighbors, who've been coming there, both at council and the planning commission, providing a food spread. It's not just water, it's a food spread. And then seeing council members and planning commission members go over to that table and start talking. And it just didn't seem right. I emailed Commissioner or Councilperson Dish, and I know she reached out to Mr. Honey and a few other people about that. And there are council rules, I think council ethics rule number 5 that talks about this particular thing. And it says that basically it could be an ethical violation, but does not apply to food or beverages provided at social events. But this is not a social event. This is a council proceeding. And the other thing that is really disturbing is that this group calls these events tailgates. It's sort of like council meetings and planning commissions are a sporting event. And you immediately think, well, there are winners and losers, and these people want to align themselves with winners. So there's several issues involved, and one of them, whether it is indeed an ethical violation, I'm not saying we should ban food. I'm saying that there should be a policy that dictates the use of food by people. Like, for example, did Neighbors for More Neighbors contact one of you and get permission, or did they just show up? Do you need to get permission in order to provide food? That should be, that should be a policy statement. Is it okay for just one group to come? What happens when 4 or 5 groups come, each with their own table, and lays out different spreads? It seems to me that then becomes a distraction. But I understood from Councilperson Dish that this is the group that sort of decides what happens in the council chamber. And so I'm coming to you to ask you to look at this problem and at the very least to come up with a policy statement or rule that sort of govern the provision of this. Kathy and I see very differently about this, as you will soon discover. I'm sorry, I should have been distracted by that. Okay, I want to thank you for that, and basically, I hope you'll consider coming up with a policy statement. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in public comment?
Go ahead,
Okay. First, to follow up on what Jeff spoke about, I did have some concerns about one group that was serving food, and so my response was to have my husband make chocolate chip cookies and bring them into all the events to sort of neutralize the effort, because I'm not on council anymore. But I was aware that some people felt like they weren't welcome to have a piece of pizza. So it would be good to at least have policy. Like if you bring food, it's for everyone. Or, yeah. Also, I think we have a real disconnect between policies and practices in general. Just to give you an example, the toilet downstairs, when you walk in the door, it flushes, and when you walk out the door, it flushes. If we're really serious about sustainability, the toilet should only flush once. I've never encountered a toilet that does it, except here. So anyway, that's twice the amount of water waste. The other thing is, you may remember this photo. I texted it to the mayor on August 6th. This truck is definitely in violation of the state law, 20 feet from the crosswalk. You cannot see these children. So, staff responded to this, and what I have to say is the most ass-backwards way possible. And I'm using profanity because I was going to just use ice cream cone whenever I want to use profanity. And if you don't know what that means, Google it because it's out there. What staff did is put some non-regulation stop signs, the ones that flagmen have, they hold them up, stop on one side, slow on the other side. I have no idea where they got that idea, but I'm not blaming staff. We have a complete void in any intelligent knowledge about engineering and transportation safety. There are dozens of violations to the Federal Highway Administration standards, the Michigan Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which is based on the federal one. In the past, I have simply sent a letter to the Federal Highway Administration And they have sent a letter back instructing staff on what they need to do. But I don't want to do that because instead of getting a letter, we might get ice back here. Am I up?
30 seconds.
Okay, so what I have done is ask Congresswoman Debbie Dingle to look into this, and she has agreed to do this because we cannot continue to have these non-standard situations when our pedestrian crash rate is at an all-time high. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak at public?
Yes, I would. I'm here to comment on that next question involving Councilmember Iyer. Most relevant facts known at this point are that Ms. Iyer advocated and voted for a $560,000 grant by the city to an LLC owned 50% by Union IBEW 252. It lists its interest in the LLC as an asset worth $700,000. IBEW 252 has paid Ms. Iyer $65,000 over the past few years for work performed such as running social media and other PR. The most relevant council rules are ethics rules 1, sections 2B and 3A, which say essentially that a council member being paid by a firm can't be involved in solicitation, negotiation, or approval of a contract between the city and that firm. Recently, Mayor Taylor recused himself from a vote on a contract with a firm that he had done legal work for, appropriately. As Iyer says, she didn't violate the rules because the LLC getting the grant is separate from 252, and according to media reports, City Attorney Carr agrees. I'd ask you to imagine yourself back in law school ethics class or during the bar exam. Let's change the facts just a little. Let's assume the work was done for Ford Motor. Ford sets up an LLC, they own half, Mazda owns half. The LLC has value. Iyer helps approve a city contract to the LLC. The exam questions are there serious conflict questions here? 2, do the facts show an appearance of impropriety? And 3, should you investigate to discover things like whether there is any influence on the decision to choose the LLC before it got to a vote? I would suggest that if you answer those questions no, you fail the exam question. I would note some additional things. First, the client is the entire council and ultimately the citizens. Next, IBEW is a major client, I believe, of Ms. Iyer. She is promoting herself as being able to get good results for the union, so the grant is great free advertising. Hire me and see what I can get. I'm not suggesting that's what happened. I'm suggesting that's what the optics are. I would argue that the separate entity defense is a very slim read on these facts. It suggests an obvious shell game. You skirt the ethics rules. You just have to have your client or business partner set up a subsidiary or a firm in which the client holds a major stake and then steer the contract to that entity. When I practiced bankruptcy law, there were often ethics questions, some difficult. I used to hire a law professor and former Mayor Bob Harris to help on those. I think I know what he would say here. This doesn't pass the smell test. And I would ask that it be looked at carefully. And again, I am not throwing stones about what actually happened. I'm saying that the optics require a hard look. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone online who'd like to speak at public comment?
Caller 534. Go ahead.
Hello, this is Tom Stallberg. I'd like to follow up on that last call and also add that the buck stops at the top. I've been the head of a number of small companies. I'm used to the buck stopping with me. That's the way it works. So I'd like to address this to our mayor. You've created an atmosphere that's allowing for these types of improprieties or appearances of improprieties with repeated behaviors from you and council members over the past several years. Multiple experts have commented on this over these past years. I could go back to the Lower Town development by Morningside, where, Mr. Mayor, you bent over backwards to help a developer avoid 93 units, almost $9 million of affordable housing, including granting a 2-week delay for what you knew were inappropriate reasons. And then we found out later with that 2-week delay, a mayoral appointee purchased an adjacent property to remove an objection, which removed a supermajority, 8-vote majority requirements, and you were able to then approve that development inappropriately, costing the city 93 units of affordable housing, or nearly $9 million. Further, in terms of appearances, your law firm billed almost $500,000 on the Gilman issue. They did not represent the city of Ann Arbor. They represented one of the neighboring communities. But again, appearances, as you delayed that issue on, and the billings went up and up. In terms of other issues, we had a Safe Routes to School grant that was being misused. City Council wisely voted down a project to misuse funds instead of for pedestrian safety and cyclist safety, to divert those for a vehicular drop-off and supportive infrastructure for that. Absolutely the opposite of what that grant was supposed to be used for, but you wanted to use it for that. Then you use that politically to try to defeat your opponents, some successfully, in future elections. Where are the optics of supporting misusing grants in order for political gain? I don't need more than 30 seconds to say, Mr. Mayor, I call for your resignation. This type of behavior by Councilmember Iyer would not exist in an administration that was open and honest and didn't create this environment. Please resign, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who'd like to speak at public comment?
Caller 675, go ahead. Caller 675. Or *6 to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, sorry. Mayor Taylor, council members and staff, thanks for the opportunity to speak with you. This is Brad Fritz calling, 3030 Lexington in the 2nd Ward, 31-year resident in Ann Arbor. And Councilmember Iyer, let me just say, I want to personally give you the benefit of the doubt. I've been in conflict of interest situations myself as a consultant. And a side perspective is you feel like, hey, I'm bringing together two parties I know to do something productive. I get that. But we also know that what matters is the appearance of impropriety. If you look at 3.1 and 3.2 of the conflict of interest policy, it doesn't demand a real conflict. All it says is that there's the appearance of one. And in these days, for all sakes, we need trust in our government. So doing things that erodes that are very troublesome. Now, I think it's a good thing when there are potential conflicts. I, as we said, as was mentioned, Mayor Taylor, you have recused yourself when your clients are involved. Mr. Wanwoo Lee of Planning Commission recently had many times where he recused himself because of involvement of his employer in a deal. And yet Mr. Lee was one of the most knowledgeable people precisely because he was in the real estate business. So I'm going to ask that you consider two things. With all respect to Council Member Ayer, consider counseling her per the corrective action procedure that's in the city's bylaws. And second, perhaps better, consider strengthening the requirements for ongoing enforcement of C of Is. The Planning Commission bylaws call for an annual review. City Council does not appear to do so. Let's toughen up the procedures a little bit. Reminding people will help. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who'd like to speak at public comment?
Mayor, I don't see anyone with their hands up. If you wish to speak, can press *9 to raise your hand. Jeff Hayner. Jeff Hayner, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Just briefly, I couldn't agree more with that last caller. There's procedures in place to protect trust in our government, and we certainly don't seem to use them. We certainly don't seem to heed them. What Councilmember Iyer did is clearly on its face an ethical violation. I don't think there's any doubt about it. And I think it's one of those instances where complicity is found through your silence about it. And I know you police yourselves, but there's also that money came down from the very top. That was a federal grant, went through the state and now to you, to us. And, she also violated the ethics of the state and federal sort that are attached to that giving. And so in doing so, she jeopardized the entirety of that grant. And we should just hope and pray that her unethical behavior, doesn't get into the hands of somebody who doesn't like the folks here in Ann Arbor and snatches that grant away from us. Because it could all too easily happen, and that's what the protections are in place for, to protect the citizens from the unethical behavior of the elected officials that purport to represent them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online who'd like to speak in public comment?
Caller 321.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, my name is Susan Perry. Just wanted to say that I'm so frustrated and angry and saddened about the Jen Iyer situation and not recusing herself regarding the $560K to IBEW 252. I don't need an attorney's opinion to guide my moral decisions. Whether or not I could be prosecuted for an action is not my ethical threshold. I know right from wrong, and Councilmember Iyer should too. Thank you.
Thank you.
If we have any other callers on the line who wish to speak, please press *9 to raise your hand. Mayor, I don't have anyone else with their hands up.
Seeing no one, public comment is closed. Now, motion to adjourn, please. Goodbye. Higher discussion. All in favor? Opposed? We're adjourned.